Welcome to the Advance Intellect virtual community channel series. Today I have Stephen Ambrose, Managing Director of Advance Intellect with me. Welcome, Stephen.
Good to be here, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump straight into it. I think the purpose of this series, as we've highlighted in the past, is really to uncover what we see happening in the industry, and more importantly, what you at Advance are doing. I think there's a couple of things that I think is quite relevant. Let's kick off the series by you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Jason, I've been involved in technology from a very young age. I mean, my first memory was stealing my father's Pioneer Hi-Fi, which had valves. Now, I've dated myself. Everyone could hear this. But that thing had a magic eye and valves. And I remember as a really young boy pulling it apart and landing up with a whole box of spare parts, and it carried on working, which was quite interesting. But that's where my love for technology began, and it has never ended through the 80s and 90s where, 286 computers were high-end, and audio was like the pinnacle of technology. I ran audio shops. I did all sorts of stuff, linked to audio. But at the same time, in order to satisfy my sort of need for growth and stability, let's put it that way, I also became a chartered accountant. But they kicked me out really quickly.
Little byproduct.
As a byproduct. My personality didn't quite blend with all the other grey-suited accountants in the room. But I qualified, and it stood me in great stead from a business and a process and from an analytical point of view. But after opening a whole chain of audio stores and music stores, because music and audio is one of my passions, I landed up in a technology strategy consulting role to large corporates from around about 2005. And that essentially never ended all the way up until to date. And that's given me enormous insight into the technology arena. I've been part of and observed and been to conferences and tended to have seen technology evolve over many, many, many years, from where it was simply a little box in the back room where, you sent the techies to the back room, the IT guys, to where it's now essentially an inextricable part of the where we live, how we live, what we do. Here I am on a camera in my home office, miles from you, and we're recording an interview at high res. So technology is just part of what I do. I love it. It works for me. And, my wife commented the other day, her iPhone stopped working. She said, "Stephen, fix it." So I went abracadabra and it started working. So there you go. Technology, as Isaac Asimov said, is pretty indistinguishable from magic.
Well, listen, and thank you for not talking about LPs, right, in the audio industry.
Let's not go there.
Well, and I think that brings us to my next question is, how did you end up, leading an organization focusing on probably two of the most exciting market segments today, data analytics and cybersecurity?
Well, in essence, the world has converged. I think let's step back from that question just a little. But the world has converged into a hyper-connected, data-driven environment where so much leads to so many things. But the building blocks of those things are essentially communication. And that's both mobile and fixed. I mean, everyone's focused on mobile. Mobile has just become a huge industry. Everyone's got one. You cannot breathe without your phone. You'll leave your home without your wallet, but you'll definitely take your phone. Luckily, you can pay with your phone now. And at the same time, driven along that whole path has been the growth of hyperscale data centers and the sheer amount of computing power that brings to any market. Now, a lot of people talk about this fourth industrial revolution. That term just upsets me because it's absolute nonsense, rubbish on any element. But they also talk about digitalization, which is another misnomer. Who cares if it's digital or it's analog? We're people, we work in the environment, but technology has now evolved to the point where it can actually add unbelievable value. It can take away tremendous drudgery. It can also develop so many things that human beings would struggle to do in and of themselves. So I'm all for how great technology is. There's a dark side to this, and that's where, interestingly, things become super interesting in the intellect space. But the light side is that we are moving into a data-driven world. The combination of hyperconnectivity, hyperscale computing ability, and the number of, again, another term that people love, IoT, the number of sensors and data collection points that have arrived and are in your fridges and your light bulbs, you name it, they're everywhere, are starting to create an environment where there's a perfect storm of benefit that can be derived from this. So over the years, I've consulted on this. I've given near future advice to large corporates about how they should react to technology, what steps they should be taking, how it's going to change the way they work. And an opportunity came up to lead Advanced Intellect, which happens to be operating in two of the hottest and most exciting parts of the technology industry. The first one, and the most important one, which you cannot operate without, is security. Without a really tight and well-managed security framework within the organization, everything you do is a challenge. Everything exposes everybody to risk, and it actually can fundamentally destroy your business if it's not handled correctly. But by the same token, every business is generating data at a rate that is unbelievable. It is exponential. You cannot deal with that data in the normal course. And what is happening is people are landing up with warehouses full of data they can do nothing with. Yeah. So the next frontier is to take that data, make it useful to the organization, make it part of how an organization operates, and actually bring massive value to the organization with the data it actually has, and data that it doesn't know it has. That's the fun part. Yeah, but when you put those two things together, you've got this container, you've got this safe, secure environment in which you operate. Obviously, it's subject to lots of legislative issues like POPI and GDPR, and there's so many different things around the world. But by the same token, from a purely business point of view, you know that what you're doing is safe and secure. And all that leads to an environment where you can actually take the next level or move to the next level within your business. Instead of using gut feel, which is a big South African thing, you can actually get data to help you drive your business to the next level. And that is hugely exciting.
Yeah, agreed. I think data is definitely underutilized in organizations. I think the challenge that they have is obviously grappling with the point of, how do they go and do that, right? And I guess that's where intellect comes in. I think this also gets back to another point is, when we look at technology is there to enable. But one of the things that we've seen coming up is obviously things like the skills shortage and social development. In every country that, Advanced Intellect operates, creating jobs and seeding the market is definitely something that needs to happen. What strategy have, you and the business looked at to address these kind of skills shortages in these segments that we're focusing on?
Again, we need to just understand the context in which we operate. Where we operate in Europe and the UK, the environment is a lot more mature than our base in South Africa. In the adjacencies that make advanced technologies work properly. So the depth and the spread of technology within the more advanced first world environments allows people to move a lot quicker along the path of optimizing their business from a digital, data, and security point of view. And that in itself creates a positive reinforced environment for more and more. So it boils back down to, because there's more maturity, the schools are producing the right type of people. The universities are focusing their various courses and their channels and their research, again, on these areas of big data, hyperscale computing, telecommunications, security. And all these things are part of the fabric of how the people work and how they learn and how they educate and how they actually operate a business. So what we found is that finding resources, although the data and the artificial intelligence and the machine learning environment is new, evolving, and unbelievably dynamic, people have the skills to be able to move into those areas fairly quickly and fairly smartly.
Yeah.
What we found in South Africa, unfortunately, is that there are an extremely limited pool of highly trained specialists in these spaces. And the universities are moving quite slowly at generating the right type of people. And the various schools and tertiary education institutes are also not doing an unbelievable job. There's a massive push, lip service from the government about 4IR and all that good stuff, but it's not translating into real world, real-time education and projects that develop the right skills. So what we've tried to do and what we've recognized at Intellect is that we, number one, have a responsibility and a commercial reality of having highly skilled people, people who can actually operate in these environments and in fact operate one step ahead of the environment. Because the problem is you need to be upfront to be able to execute within the environment that you operate. So we've training is key in our environment. We've trained all our consultants are highly trained, highly certified, highly motivated, and highly skilled in the real world within the cyber and the data speciality areas. And at the same time, we are evolving a complete intern setup where we can actually bring young people with the necessary attitude, because skills you can train, yeah. Attitude's hard. We can train these young people in the new areas, both data, including privacy and security, and train them up and bring them into the environment where we can really offer services. The hassle really is, and I honestly believe you cannot educate a market. A market needs to be ready to embrace the technologies that exist. And that comes from multiple sources, multiple directions. It's very, very complex and very difficult. But we're playing our role and we're trying our best to position ourselves as the people who understand the market and understand where we need to be in order to maximize the benefit for business and ourselves in this market.
No, that's excellent. I think one of the things that probably stands out for me is that you're part of a group of companies, which is the Atvance Group. Can you give me a little bit of an understanding about the group and then more importantly, the part that Atvance Intellect plays in obviously the growth of that group?
Well, Atvance Intellect is unashamedly a technology company. We're focusing on the core elements of probably the fastest growing and most critical parts of the technology world, which is data, security, and obviously within the legislative framework in which we operate, privacy going forward. But the Atvance Group, which is interesting, has evolved from being a health and safety training organization into a very large institute training in around up to 30,000 students at any point in time in NQF levels 2 to 5, which is basically college and post-matric education. And through that, what we have learned is that there are enormous skills in the country. There is enormous ability to train and to educate and to facilitate the growth of the youth in the country. And the group is very, very focused on that. It's a massive enterprise. We're doing it through 300 campuses across the country, but right where people live. We don't, like a traditional university, bring everybody to a central place. We take the education directly into the communities where we work. And we try to, and this is where it gets complicated, we try to match what's needed in the market with what the government are trying to push within their environment. But the ability, the scale of the training environment that we have enables us as the Atvance Group to do the sort of things, to take the leaps in training, education within the intellect space to the next level. So we're going to be leveraging off our training abilities to train the next generation of tech specialists. And hopefully there's a Bill Gates in our mix somewhere. And he'll remember me, a Larry Brin or one of those guys hiding in our training schemes that'll come up and remember good old Intellect from the days when we gave them the chance to break out into the technology world.
Absolutely. I mean, that sounds exciting. I think it's very clear for me that your passion is definitely technology, understanding local market conditions as well as European and US market conditions. I think it really, for me, it gives me some great insight into you guiding the business. in what way do you think that Advance Intellect, knowing a little bit more about your business now, do you think is positioned, well enough for customers to engage with, on their digital transformation journeys?
Well, again, I'm not there to take people on a journey per se. I believe that Advanced Intellect needs to be a trusted partner, a trusted advisor, and a trusted solution provider within the context of what is cutting edge in the technology field. The one thing you learn is that change is just ever present. This whole COVID-19 pandemic globally has forced companies to relook at their base operations, at their methodologies, how they reach people, how they operate at a fundamental level. And what I believe Advanced Intellect can do and can assist with these various companies is to allow them to create an external pool of expertise, which will allow these companies to move quicker, move faster, and to develop into the next generation company. I mean, everybody knows the Polaroid story, the Kodak story. Yeah. Technologies, what was cutting edge 10 years ago, today is essentially obsolete. And unless companies partner with partners and advisors such as Advanced Intellect, obviously it's a shameless push from our side, but unless they partner with the people who have the vision, and I'm not talking about futurists, I'm not talking about flying cars, and I'm not talking about, all this sort of Jetson type future stuff. I'm talking about 2 to 5 year understanding of where the business environment is going to be, and how do you optimize your operation, change your internal systems and platforms, make sure that you've got all the necessary building blocks to take your business to the next level. I believe that your business is in danger, and you need to find trusted advisors, people that can take care of these critical elements of your business and do it in a way that keeps you future-proofed and relevant to the current market. We're not all things to all companies, but for specific environments, I believe we've got the skills, the necessary understanding, and the forward vision to be able to assist large and smaller companies to really engage with the digital world we live in, understand what needs to be done, and rely on us to develop the systems, platforms, skills, and products that they need in order to survive and thrive in a challenging world that we find ourselves in.
Listen, I mean, for me, it sounds exciting. One of the things that we always get asked, and I'd like to ask you as well, is, with all of the, and there's a lot of buzzwords, there's a lot of acronyms, and thank you for not using those, because I think we live in a world where
I try. Tech is full of those.
Acronyms and buzzwords are used, traditionally. For those that are subscribing, where do you see Advanced Intellect in the next 36 months? Because there is a lot going on at this point in time. Where do you see the business in that time frame?
Essentially, where we are going, the medium term, just like any other business. We're a technology business. We solidly based on technology solutions, technology platforms. We are increasing the business to look at privacy and all sorts of compliance issues, both legal and operational. So we are going to continue to grow the business with best of breed product. I think that's key in this environment. Most companies need to focus on what they do. How they do what they do is a critical element. But at the same time, that doesn't allow them to keep their head up, look ahead a year or two, understand where the forces of technology are taking their industry, their company, and the world in general. And that is where I think Advanced Intellect, as a trusted partner with these companies, can really add massive value. We're continuing to grow our core competencies. We continue with a massive education campaign for all our consultants and our interns. And I expect in 3 years' time that we are going to be a significant player, both to major corporates in the sort of verticals that we operate, which tend to be large finance, large corporations that operate at scale, both locally and in Europe. And we'll be able to add enormous value to these companies using the technologies that are cutting edge. We always tend to find the products that are not mainstream. There's an old adage in technology: no one gets fired for installing IBM. And this is not a knock for IBM. IBM make and do enormously valuable and powerful work in the industry. But it doesn't mean that you can just hit every problem with an IBM solution. There's often a lot of nuance. You need to understand a lot about a business. You need to understand a lot about what they need and where the industry and the technology landscape is going to offer the best solution. And I believe that, considering the growth we've had in the last 18 months, the next 18 months are going to be exponential. I love exponential, unless it's related to health.
It's your chartered accountant coming out.
Yeah, that's me. I like exponential. And I think that we are perfectly placed across the various markets that we are experts in to deliver unbelievable value to companies and really move the needle in terms of how well they do business, where they put their investment, and where they put their time, because that is critical.
Yeah. I think we're seeing at the moment, with large corporates, just as you're saying, with the pandemic that we're facing at the moment, everybody is re-architecting, redesigning, looking at budgets. So, it's great to hear what you're doing as a business. Stephen, thank you very much. I think the insight that you've given us today is great. I definitely understand a little bit more about the company, more of what the group's doing. But I think just for our subscribers, a really good idea as to what this business is up to. I look forward to inviting you at least back at 18 months' time, sitting in front, and let's talk about exponential growth. But
well, you know the story about exponential; it just keeps going.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you again.
It's a pleasure.